गया था मैत्री।
अच्छा ओके
राइट, चलो सर को पहले कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट कर देते हैं फॉर ऑल हिज
हाँ
बुक्स
जी।
एंड ऑल।
थैंक यू।
अरे हाँ,
यस
Yes.
एब्सोल्युटली
Big
कांग्रेट्स
congrats.
यस
millions
कांग्रेट्स
and millions congratulations.
थैंक यू एवरीवन।
चलो गुड गुड।
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
चीयर्स। चाय सर के पास तो चाय भी, अपने पास तो वो भी नहीं अभी।
हाँ, actually we
I
should have
know.
sat with our cups actually.
आई नो
Right.
Sir,
चलो,
sir was flaunting his new Freudian cup.
हाँ,
Just
I
have a
think
look,
show it to
Maitri ji.
Maitri, no? Show it
It's
to
interesting.
Oh.
Very interesting.
अरे कहाँ गए?
मैत्री चली गई। कहाँ चली गई मैत्री? I think by mistake she is
I think
disappeared.
और probably उनके यहाँ power cut हुआ होगा. She's not audible also.
There,
no?
there she is.
हाँ,
there
there
she
she
is.
नहीं
is.
नहीं आई सॉरी आई गॉट अनदर कॉल।
Okay, okay.
हाँ, okay. Okay. चलो अपना एनवी का करते हैं।
जी
फिर ध्रुवल को एनवी करवाएंगे।
oh let me go in my setting then
We have an envy chamber, ऐसा?
no the
Envy
usual
chamber.
setting I was sitting out
Okay.
Envy chamber is a good idea actually. Yeah? भावना?
envy chamber
तो भी
हाँ,
एनवी
यार।
निकालो
Envy.
उसमें।
इनफैक्ट हमने जो सोचा था
नहीं, पुराने जमाने में होता
7
था ना? पुराने जमाने में?
हाँ
कोप भवन ना
अब
वो
हाँ,
तो
कोप
हाँ
एंकर
कोप
भवन।
भवन।
हमारे घर में है कोप भवन. Whenever any woman gets
अरे-
really pissed off ना, third floor पे she goes
हाँ.
and sit. Except me, I am the odd one out. बाकी सारे
अच्छा।
सारे गुस्से में जाके वहाँ घुस जाते हैं. सिर्फ वो कोप भवन में गई.
we also we have one for my daughter वो जब भी गुस्सा होके बैठती है तो मैं कहती हूँ कोप भवन
अच्छा, you also say. देखो, great minds think alike.
Right, right. चलो तो अपना
Yes, sir. आप
एनवी
कुछ कह
एनवी
रहे
चेम्बर,
थे.
लेट्स गेट इनटू द एनवी चेम्बर।
yes
Yes,
oh you
yes.
recording as well right
यस यस, वरना वो ध्रुवल
हाँ,
मार देगा
okay.
मुझे।
कुछ अनपार्लियामेंट्री मत बोल देना।
या रिकॉर्डिंग हो रहा है।
Should we start?
यस
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start with the first part of what is envy all about. So, normally we define envy as inability to admire or tolerate something which is outside of us. So, if I see somebody more intelligent than me, I feel envious of that person. If I see somebody more handsome than me, I can feel envious of that person. This is how we look at a normal definition of envy. Inability to tolerate or admire something good outside of us. This leads us to the next step, that outside of us, there can be a good in somebody, or there can be good in something that somebody has. So there can be good in somebody who is more intelligent than me, more handsome than me. Or he may have a Mercedes car which is with him. It is not inside of him, but he owns that thing. So what we do is, in the first case, we call it envy, which is a two-body phenomena. I cannot tolerate the intelligence or the looks of yours. It is envy. The second is, I cannot tolerate you have a Mercedes, which is a three-body phenomena, I, you, and something that you have, which I cannot tolerate. So this we call as jealousy. So we use the words differently, but the essence is the same: inability to tolerate good outside of ourselves. Two-body phenomena, we call it envy. Three-body phenomena, we call it jealousy. In normal language, people use the word jealousy both for two-body and three-body phenomena. Few people use the word envy. But in psychoanalysis, we differentiate a two-body phenomena and a three-body phenomena. Two-body is envy, three-body is jealousy. Okay. Now, we can also come to whether we can have envy related to something good inside of us, which is a very strange thing, but we do see that in psychoanalysis, that at times, in rare occasions, we also see envy towards something good which is within ourselves or with ourselves. Right? We will slowly get into it as we go deeper, but let us stop at the moment with the definition that envy is inability to tolerate or admire the good outside of us. Two-body, we call it envy. Three-body, we call it jealousy. Any issue on this definition part?
No.
Okay. Now let us look at, yeah, Maitri.
Sorry, nah, nothing.
Okay. The second part is, how do we look at envy, greed, and narcissism? Because it can easily cause confusion in understanding. One confusion can be, is envy a part of narcissism only? That because I am narcissistic, I cannot tolerate good outside of me. Or is envy something separate than narcissism? So it is a slightly complex question because the problem is definitional. If we define narcissism as all desires of I, if all desires of I, and we conceptualize the phenomena like this: I exist, I have desires. Before I have desires, I have to exist. So step number one, I exist. Step number two, I have desires. And step number three, because these desires are my desires, movement of any desire is narcissistic desire or a movement of narcissism. So if that way, if we define narcissism, then every desire will become a narcissistic desire. But we don't define that way. And what we do is, we keep narcissism confined to two core entities: grandiosity and entitlement. Other phenomena, we keep them separate. So if we define all desires as narcissistic, then envy will also look to emerge only from narcissism. But that is not how we define. Usually we define narcissism attached to grandiosity and entitlement and hyper response to criticism. Rest of the things, rest of the desires, we don't conceptualize as narcissistic desires. Rest of the phenomena, we don't conceptualize as narcissistic phenomena. So the normal definition, envy is different, narcissism is different. And let us look at greed and envy. And also look at why, even though conceptually we can conceptualize envy and greed both to be outcomes of narcissism, we don't do it. for two reasons. One, in greed, we want to acquire something outside of us. In envy, we want to destroy something good outside of us. In both cases, we cannot tolerate something good outside of us. So in those cases, one may look at both of them as narcissistic movements, and it will not be wrong if we look at it that way. But for the sake of conceptual clarity, we don't look at it that way. And we keep narcissism by and large confined to entitlement, grandiosity, and hypersensitivity to criticism. Now look at how greed and envy can play, how jealousy and envy can play. Suppose I am jealous because my friend has a beautiful wife. Let us say my friend divorces his wife and I get into relationship with his wife. So a three-body phenomena has become now a two-body phenomena. Jealousy is no longer possible. It's a two-body phenomena. And I have that object of desire with me. And yet I can feel envious of that person. So one can have his wife or husband who has good qualities and still be envious of that person because of the good qualities. So even if you have goodness, you can still be envious of that goodness. Even in a two-body phenomena, you can have goodness, even then you can be envious of that goodness because in a very biological, organic way, it is still outside of you. Although emotionally, legally, you may own it, but even in that owning, the person is a separate person from you, and that becomes a cause of envy. So it is not only that you don't own it, even if you own it, you can still be envious. Envy can take strange forms. You can have a director of a company who is earning more than 10 crores per annum, envious of his own employee who is earning less than 15,000 rupees per month. And when the point of raising the salary comes, he feels envious. How can this man move from 10,000 to 12,000? The very fact that this person will earn 2,000 more can be envious for a man for whom 12,000 rupees may even be his daily expenditure. Right? So envy can take strange forms. It is a very irrational response to the good. The rational response would be admiration, encouragement, and gratitude. That if we see something good outside of us, we should admire it. We should feel gratitude that we have been able to see it. Such a good thing. But we don't give that rational response. We give the pathological response of feeling envy. So this is how envy is, and envy can play out in a variety of ways. And this is how envy will be different from jealousy, and it can continue even in a two-body phenomenon. Let us say, take the example of greed. Right? In a three-body phenomena, I am jealous of somebody because he has a Mercedes. Suppose that person gives Mercedes to me. When I see him with a Mercedes, the greed in me awakens. I also want to have that Mercedes. Let us say he gives that Mercedes to me. Right? The greed is resolved. Jealousy is gone, but the envy is still there. I can feel envious towards my own Mercedes. And you can see people, when they look at a new vehicle, they feel themselves very uneasy and they put a scratch on the vehicle. To see something so beautiful is so unbearable. After you put a scratch and it is no longer the all good breast, it becomes bearable to see it. So you have to bring that thing down from heaven to earth by scratching it. You can see that in children also. Very small children, when they look at something, let us say the wall is freshly painted and whole things looks very beautiful, right? Many of them will spoil it as an attack of envy. Inability to see so much of good, it's unbearable. Once you put a spot or damage it to some extent, you defile it, it becomes bearable. Yeah, Bhavna, you had a question.
Yeah, sir, I had a question like somewhere I'm getting another third kind of thing out here when you were explaining. When a person gets a pleasure in destroying the object of envy, thus in a way it is depriving other person also of it. One part. Second part, when the person acquires by depriving other, there is another pleasure where here the greed is involved, as well as there is a pleasure of depriving the other person. And third is simply depriving the other person or just having the greed being activated. Like as you said, suppose somebody has a Mercedes and suppose I become envious and I also buy a Mercedes or a higher end of that same version, I feel happy. But there is person, mujhe to mil gaya hai, but I want to, snatch his thing. He should be deprived as well. So here I think the jealousy and envy and greed, somewhere I think where the greed part goes down is where the sadistic pleasure of depriving other person comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the narcissistic rage, the narcissistic injury, and the element of sadism is in play, where it is no longer a question of equaling him in possession, you have to destroy his possession. So in that destruction, it is a part attack of envy, part attack of sadism, and part attack of narcissistic rage. All the three destructive impulses will propel the person to destroy that other or the object of the other.
So, can I ask?
Yeah, please.
Initially, you said that we don't define narcissism with envy. You define narcissism by grandiosity and entitlement and hyper response to criticism. So, envy is not kind of part of a narcissistic personality, is it?
It is. It is.
But somehow,
It is.
from what you have
Usually,
shared, it seems very intertwined. I don't think you can really separate them. That's what I feel. I mean,
yeah,
essentially, narcissistic personality is bound to have some form of envy in some way or the other. That's how it comes
very
across.
strong.
Because even
Very strong.
entitlement, actually,
Narcissistic.
entitlement extend envy में ही जाएगा, extend होके कि भाई I am entitled to everything, so
So
nobody
narcissist.
else can have anything good. That kind of a thing.
Yes. So narcissistic personalities usually have very strong envy,
Right.
and in many cases, the envy is completely unconscious. Particularly with respect to one particular subtype of narcissist, which we call the idealistic narcissist, where a high dose of idealism and narcissism goes together. In those cases, the envy is very, very subtle and unconscious. And the person may not even act out on that envy, but in an indirect way, he will practice envy by omission. For example, let us say a narcissistic consultant is employed by a company, and the consultant's job is to give ideas to the company. the more ideas he gives, the better will be his performance and probably more the reward. So it is in his interest to give ideas. It is in company's interest to have more ideas. But the consultant may feel so envious of the owner that even if it hurts him and his self-interest, he would not give the best of ideas to the owner. He will think, if I give this idea, the owner will make so much money out of it. Out of that, he might give me 1%. But what about the 99% that he makes? I can't stand it. So even if I have to let go of my 1%, I will not allow him to make the 99%. So in many cases, envy can be seen working by omission, that you don't actively destroy, but you hold back positive contribution. And this is very easily seen in organizational life, where people don't perform to their full potential and hold back because of many reasons. One of the reasons can be envy. Yes, Supriya.
Can this be applied to like gurus, like whether in music or whether in some sports, or where they don't give knowledge wholeheartedly or completely? They hold back the key parts of their experience or knowledge or something. Is it related to envy or something else?
Yeah, it partly can be, where the moment the disciple starts becoming nearer to the guru may start feeling envious. Initially, his narcissistic desire may get fulfilled, that he is training people, making them more capable. But the moment the people become very close to him, then the envy would start.
Okay.
Right? And at times, it may also be because the guru may not see the worthiness in the student, some weakness in the student, where the fear is that the student may misuse that knowledge.
Okay.
So that would be a reason, apart from envy, for not giving wholeheartedly all that he knows.
Right. No, but suppose he knows that the student is really a competent person and who can really flourish, but he will hold back
Yes,
by giving the keys, main keys of the profession or whatever he's teaching. So that is subtle envy.
it may be envy. Yeah, it may be envy. It may also be his self-preservation.
कि मेरे से आगे नहीं निकल जाए, that kind of a thing.
वो भी है, और अगर मार्केट साइज बहुत छोटा है तो सर्वाइवल की बात आ जाएगी
हाँ हाँ
कि ये
हाँ,
कंपटीशन में खड़ा हो गया तो मेरा क्या होगा.
ओके ओके.
अगर मार्केट बड़ा है तब तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगा. If the market is big enough, it can accommodate all of them. But if the market is not big enough, then the question of self-preservation will come in.
Right. Okay. ठीक है.
Yeah, any questions on this? Envy, narcissism,
one-
greed.
Yeah, so just one question. Can there be envy between a father and a son? Like both are into the business. Father would be doing something, and then,
Yeah.
when the son joins, can then there be some sort of envy? Or
Envy is
because we
everywhere.
often see
Envy is everywhere.
at least difference, वो difference के form में manifest होके बाहर आता है. There is a lot of difference in the attitude. There are times when the senior does not approve of the junior's
Yes.
call or something. So that is envy, or what
Yeah,
is
so
that?
at times it may be narcissistic grandiosity.
Okay.
At times it can be envy.
But it's
And,
possible. Envy.
It's everywhere. It can be between mother and daughter, father and son, two brothers, two sisters,
Mhm.
student and teacher, teacher and student. It can be anywhere.
Hmm.
And it is
So
something which is
Ken-
very difficult to justify,
Yeah.
So, like when Maitriji said that narcissistic parents, somewhere narcissistic parents have a habit of, not all of them, but they consider their kids extension of themselves. So there, the envy can subside because most of the narcissistic parents have this
Partly
tendency
yes.
of. Hmm. Okay.
Partly yes, because when you identify with somebody, it is easy to admire the good and not get destructive in envy.
So there it doesn't become the two-bodied then it becomes one-bodied with regard to narcissistic parents' envy.
Yeah, it's a 1.5 pair.
Yeah.
That the other is seen as a half person, half independent, and half extension of me. And this is also the case in case of many guru shishya relationships, where you see lot of flow but very less envy. And there the issue is this of uh, there's narcissistic identification with the person as a disciple. And then the disciple is seen as a creation of the guru. And when the
Right.
guru feels he is a creation of me, it's a narcissistic kick that he gets out of it.
Right.
Apart from the noble joy of creating and creating something good. That's one part of it, of course. So then we have uh, narcissism in early childhood. Once we understand once we understand what envy is, we look at envy in early childhood. Observe the slip I just made.
I thought we'll not mention it.
सर खुद ही नहीं रह पाए हस्बैंड
So,
Yeah.
Freud called it the return of the repressed. What you try to repress the most comes out someday. Okay,
But you are not trying to repress
leaving
your
my narcissism for a later day.
But you are not trying to repress it, I'm sure.
No. No. My narcissism has a exhibitionist quality to it.
Yeah, exactly. And like Bhavna says that you should rethink whether you are narcissistic or not. Right, Bhavna?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, anyway.
Someday when we do the seminar on narcissism and we do all the subtypes of narcissism, then you can give me a more informed opinion.
Okay.
Okay.
Huh?
Right.
अब तक छुपाए रखा
Okay,
दिल
chalo.
में दबाए रखा
Uh, so, कहाँ थे हम लोग? Yes.
Envy in early life, you said, no?
Yeah, or envy in early childhood. Once we have defined envy, once we have differentiated it from jealousy, narcissism, and greed, and once we have seen how it is irrational, how it can emerge in any situation, how it is pervasive and present everywhere almost, and it is almost like pure evil, very difficult to justify. So we will take it up later slightly, that why should nature keep such an entity in us? We'll take it slightly later. But for the present, how do we see the manifestation of envy in early childhood? What have different masters of psychoanalysis said about it? Okay. So the concept essentially was made popular by Melanie Klein. And the first manifestation that Klein felt was of the envy that the child feels towards the good breast. The very good breast that he wants, the very good breast that he admires, the very good breast with whose splendor the child is dazzled, towards the same good breast he has envy. And destructive envy, so destructive that actually in fantasy he attacks the good breast. And later on it creates guilt when he realizes what has been done. So that is the first phenomena that we see in earliest of life, that in two body situation, the child and the good breast, which is actually a part body situation, the child still does not see the full mother. He only understands the part object, the breast. And later on, the same envy will come up for the full good mother. Later on, as it goes forward, the child will feel envious of the idealizing part of the parent, the ideals in the parent, which he tries to internalize, which is a cohesion phenomena where the child wants to internalize the idealized parts of the parents. And at the same time, the child feels envious of the parents. In Adler's terms, the child feels extremely inferior because of the small size in front of very big parents who seem so powerful, strong, and almost omnipotent. And the same admiration at the same time also causes envy. And then we move on to the Oedipal phase. And in the Oedipal phase, there is envy of the parent of the same gender. There is envy of the parent of the opposite gender. Envy moves in both the ways. Envy attacks or moves towards the goodness of the good parent, the parent of the opposite gender. And envy also moves towards the goodness in the parent of the same gender, because of which that parent is able to attract the parent of the opposite gender. And particularly Freud talks about uh, penis envy, which is more gendered, and females feel more towards men. At the same time, some feminists would also say there is a breast envy corresponding to the penis envy, which the boys
Even,
would feel.
even one of the
Yeah.
psychologists named Horney, she mentioned it as womb envy.
Yeah, womb envy. Yeah, that is also true. She does mention it, uh, and I feel it is there. May not be so strong, but as a phenomena, I don't see. Well, I see more reason for it to be there than for it not to be there. So across this whole spectrum, from 0 to 5 years, we can see envy at play at various developmental parts, various developmental stages. Right? In the paranoid schizoid position, in the idealizing phase of the parents, in assessment of the parents in Adler's terms of power and inferiority, in Freudian terms of the Oedipal triangle. Across the whole spectrum from 0 to 5, various phenomena that are so important to psychoanalysis. In many of those phenomena, you see envy. It may be primary, it may be secondary, may be very important or less important, but we can see it there.
Sir, so if we see the
Any questions on
Kleinian's
this?
object relation theory, there it will be Merging with the object of envy before the greed stage comes.
In fact, there are two different movements of merger, dissolution, and envy. Four actually: merger, dissolution, greed, and envy. And it is not necessary that only one of them can happen. So if we visualize in the Kleinian framework, the child looking at the good breast and the good mother, when the child looks at the good breast, once you see goodness outside of you, various responses are possible. One is to have greed, to rob everything and hold it in yourself. Two, out of envy, attack. And three, dissolve into the good breast or merge back into the good mother. So that container of goodness, you merge into it somehow. And the imagery is slightly different. When the breast is in question, uh, more likely is the feeling of getting dissolved in some located area of the breast, through some some circumscribed area of the breast. And when the fantasy of merger, the more common fantasy would be to merge back into the body in the area between the breast and the waist, the breast and the stomach part of it, through that to merge back. And one way to sequence this is to say that the first idea may be to merge, but then you lose your existence. So that idea is dropped. Second is to rob and make it your own. If that is also not possible, then maybe the envious destruction comes in. That would be a kind of sequencing of the ideas.
Very
ये
interesting.
तो दोनों extremes हो गए ना, either I dissolve or I have it completely. Like these are two extremes on the spectrum.
मैं नहीं या तू नहीं.
हाँ, something like that, yeah. So how does it work?
मर्जर के अंदर मैं नहीं और
हाँ,
एनवियस डिस्ट्रक्शन के बाद तू नहीं.
right. But how does it work in realistic phenomena? I mean, I'm getting it conceptually, but
let us look at it in two situations, one of pathology and one of normal adult behavior. Just a moment, just give me a moment.
yeah. Do we take a short break?
Just a glass of water.
Yeah.
So, in pathology, the manifestation would be let us take up a disorder say erectile dysfunction. There may be many reasons. One of the reasons can be the very sight of the woman's body may be triggering the merger fantasies. And because merger means ceasing to exist, the person is terrified. And therefore, the very sight of the woman's body, instead of being pleasurable, becomes a threat of death. And therefore, the dysfunction. Okay. Second would be, let us say there are two emperors, and in one emperor's kingdom, something beautiful has been built. And the other emperor gives contract to somebody to destroy it. He does not give a contract to build a similar thing in his kingdom. He gives a contract to destroy that.
Okay.
So that is like a destruction of envy. It's an attack of envy for destruction. Let us say there are two businessmen, both of them meet at a club, let us say Gymkhana club. Now they are not in competition anyway. One is in the business of refrigerators, other is in the business of say tube lights. And yet the person who makes refrigerators informs the income tax authorities to raid this person. Out of envy. There is no competition. Both of them are very different areas, in very different areas. The scale also is very different. One is at 50 crore turnover, second is at 5,000 crore turnover. There is no comparison. And yet, out of envy, you facilitate or you precipitate the destruction of the other. Many people in the business world, particularly in the small industry, they would rather close down the industry than increase the salary of their employees, even if the cost of labor is only 20% or 10% of the whole turnover. So let us say the cost of labor is 10%, the profit margin is 30%, and the labor is asking for 5% raise. Even after the raise, the profit margin still will be 15%. But he would rather let go of the 15% than to give a raise of 5%. Okay? So that is like irrational destruction out of envy. So you just want to destroy whatever is good, or you cannot bear something good coming up.
Right.
So these will be the various manifestations of envy, and you will see that in most business partnerships, it is one partner who informs the tax authorities about the other partner.
Right.
They don't have to do any R&D. It is envy which is enough for them. So human envy is their R&D department. It automatically gives them all the information.
Right.
Right? Okay. Any other question? Let us take some everyday examples, and then we look at pathological examples. Everyday examples would be there are two friends. One is appearing in a competitive exam, and the other friend is not appearing. and the one who is not appearing, he tries to persuade the friend who is appearing to take it easy and not work very hard for preparation. So that would be a very normal manifestation of envy. Envy between two partners in a business, envy between competitors, envy between father and the son, because at the same age, the son may be achieving much more. Envy between a mother and a daughter, because the daughter has more boyfriends or better boyfriends than the mother ever had. So envy will come up in a variety of ways on an everyday basis. Now coming to the pathological examples. The first very important pathological example will be what Bion says, that envy is responsible for the cognitive thought disorders, what he calls attacks on linking. That whenever the continuity of thought or feeling or any psychic movement is interrupted, the linkage is broken because of an attack of envy. Okay. Second will be very importantly, Klein says the center of our good health is based upon internalization of a good, reliable, stable object. But if the envy of the object is very high, internalization will be impeded. It will not be easy. You will resist internalization of the good, reliable, stable object. And that in turn will not allow you to internalize a soothing mechanism, a healthy mechanism, which will be the center of health in the personality. Okay. Then we will have the envy in the Oedipal triangle. Yeah, yes, Priya.
ये जो आपने कहा ना कि the person is envious from the beginning and therefore he cannot internalize a good object, a soothing object, right? So in that case, envy is a kind of constitutional thing. Can you say that?
Yes, it is. It is constitutional. It is inborn.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And therefore, even as early as paranoid schizoid position, we see envy. It is too early to learn anything from outside. So it is there constitutionally.
Okay.
So this is how, yeah, then we come to the Oedipal triangle and we see intense envy. And if the envy is very high, then the resolution where the person decides to be like the parent of the same gender, that is not easy. Because the envy does not allow him to be like the person he envies. Admiration allows us easily to become somebody like we admire. But envy involves some sort of dislike and hate and anger, and therefore it's difficult to be like the person we envy, at least for a child. So these will be the pathological manifestations of envy. It can also be Adler's envy of inferiority, that you are envious of anybody better than you in any way, and therefore there is a constant attack and a small degree of anger and hate towards them, which comes in the way of acceptance also comes in the way of good authority relationships in the organization, because you are too envious of authority figures. So just as there is a castration anxiety of authority figures, there is also envy of authority figures. And both come in the way of having good relationships with the authority figures.
Sir, out here I have a question. When you talk about the Adler's sense of inferiority being projected as envy, can it be projection itself? The inferior self being attacked by the superior self. There is an identification happening there, but there's projection also, same time. Can it be something like that?
Say it again.
Suppose a person is seeing a person superior, but वहाँ पे there is a reinforcement of sense of inferiority of self. So there is a act of projection that I wish this should be there in me, but the reality checks in and shows the inferiority. So it becomes like an indirect uh, thing happening to a person.
I see somebody superior to me, then what happens?
I see
It
someone
reminds
superior
me
to
of my
me.
inferiority.
Yes, because somewhere there's projection of self, desirable self out there, right? I feel envy can be
Right,
like that,
right.
that you desire that to possess that thing or to be like that thing. So there's a projection of wish fulfillment,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen, and there is a real reality check of inferiority. Like you are lacking that, or you're not capable of that. So it becomes like
Yes,
a
yes, I
जैसे
get the
bow
point.
में से arrow निकल हाँ
Uh, it is uh, it is a projection which leads to idealization, which leads to envy.
Okay.
So you want to be omnipotent, right? You have a picture of the good breast, which is the nearest to omnipotence that you are picturizing. You cannot become it because you know you are not that. So that desire remains unfulfilled. You project that onto somebody else who then is idealized. And this very idealization does two things. One, it is wish fulfillment, that what you want is actually there in the world. It is not a no hope situation. Right? And you can actually get near to that person. So you can get near to the ideal object you want. And at the same time, this very idealization will create envy. So this is also a common thing where you idealize the person you admire and then you become envious of it.
Right.
And this is where too much of admiration can also lead to envy. There is an old saying which says something like, I forget the verbatim, but the meaning is this: where there is too much sugar, bacteria will get in.
Fair enough.
So it is that where there is too much of admiration, in most cases, admiration will be, not saying ordinary admiration, but too much of admiration might involve idealization. And when such suprahuman idealization takes place, it is very common for envy also to get generated. Now, how do we look at envy in everyday terms? Between friends, there is envy. Envy is everywhere. Like love, hate, and anger, envy also is universal. So between friends, between family members, between two families, within an organization, between colleagues, between teacher and student, student and teacher, between client and a service provider, envy can come in anywhere. And it is so strong that at times you will accept your own self-destruction in order to satisfy the destructive urges of your envy. It is so unbearable. So it's a very strong element. In fact, in Kleinian psychotherapy, they say that unless you have really encountered envy, which is at great depth, envy and guilt generally are highly repressed. So unless you have really encountered envy and guilt, the therapy really has not acquired depth. Many people feel it that way. So it is everywhere and it is irrational. Like I gave an example of a director of a company feeling envious of a employee of a company where in fact the income has no comparison at all. For example, you may be giving a shirt or a trouser to somebody uh, who has come asking almost in a begging way. But when you are giving it, you may also feel envious that now he is going to have it. Okay, it's not necessary that always you will feel it. It's not necessary that everyone will feel it, but some people at times will feel it. That on
That
one
has
hand,
many other things also.
yes, definitely. Yes, Priya.
Yeah. You said no, envy and guilt are the deepest, possibly. So what about shame? Is it because that
Or
write-up I sent was shame and envy ka combination, especially I think in the
yeah,
narcissistic
so
personality.
precisely.
Yeah.
In narcissistic personality, shame will be very deep. But in other personalities, it will not be as heavily repressed normally as guilt and envy. Exceptions, of course, always will be there. But as a rule, except for a few type of personalities like narcissistic personality or maybe some dependent personalities also and some histrionic also, shame will not be as deeply repressed in most other people, whereas guilt and envy in general will be very heavily repressed.
So what is the
So in
connection
narcissistic
between shame and envy? And here, like, how do you
uh,
differentiate between guilt and shame and envy? Like the triangle, how does it work?
uh, shame and guilt are easy. Guilt is because the remorse that you feel because you have done something wrong in your own eyes. So it is the feeling that follows doing something immoral as you believe it to be immoral.
Right.
Shame is something where you have done something which others believe is not right.
Okay. So guilt is more
So shame,
intra-psychic.
yeah, shame is a social phenomenon.
But like as you say, no, I'm ashamed of my own self. So how does that go? Or it's just a phrase?
Uh, it is more of a phrase, and
Okay.
it may be like I am ashamed of what I have done because I know what I have done is not something people approve of.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay, fine. So
So
shame और envy का फिर क्या
this is the
connection
way
है?
shame and guilt are related to morality,
हाँ.
whereas envy is almost an intolerance of good outside of us.
Right.
So what will happen is our envy may lead us to do things for which we may feel guilt or shame.
Okay. So envy is at the root?
Uh, Not in that way, but envy as a motivation may lead us to do something immoral or illegal, which may cause guilt or shame.
Shame. So then it becomes a cycle.
Yes, because envy is not a positive motivation. Essentially, out of envy, we attack people, we destroy something, and based upon what is the nature of that destruction, it may lead to guilt or shame. because essentially we are doing something not good.
That means envy can involve
envy-
superego and can exclude it also.
Yeah, so what will happen is that as a result of practice of envy, the superego will punish ourselves. And the second possibility can be that envy is activated, but the superego pressure is so high that you are not able to put into practice what the envy wants you to do, in which case envy will be heavily repressed.
That
So
that
there will be three
also
elements.
somewhere says
One,
that
yeah,
that envy resides in id, somewhere in that zone, before the ego
yeah,
or
it's,
the
yeah. Envy as citizenship of the id.
So,
So envy has citizenship of the id.
yeah, so जो repressed envy आप बोल रहे हो, so can it be unknowingly projected on people?
It is. It is. So let us look at the four dynamics of the unconscious envy. Okay. One, you become envious of somebody and you start doing destructive actions.
Right.
And after the destructive actions are done, you yourself are attacked inside by guilt or shame.
Right.
Situation one. Situation two, envy wants you to do something, but you don't allow yourself to do it. So we are using the defense of suppression.
Right.
In which case, there is lot of bottled up agitation and anger. And we feel highly uncomfortable because we are not able to complete the whole transaction of envy because superego has stopped us.
Right.
At the same time, we are not able to root out envy from its roots. So we cannot clean the id and we cannot uh, allow envy to follow its logical conclusion.
Right.
So it's a suffocating situation, an agitating situation. The third would be uh, that uh, envy is completely repressed but in control. So envy has been successfully repressed in you. It does not even come up to the conscious mind where you have to use suppression. You don't even know that you have envy and you have suppressed envy. Sorry, you have repressed envy. The superego is so strong in your id itself that the part of the superego in your id represses envy right there. You don't even know how much envy you have.
So
But
उसका
the ego is
projection
strong
होता है
enough to
फिर?
successful. नहीं, प्रोजेक्शन भी नहीं होता, सक्सेसफुल रिप्रेशन हो जाता है.
अच्छा, okay. Okay.
अगर ईगो स्ट्रेंथ हाई है तो रिप्रेशन सक्सेसफुल हो जाता है.
Okay.
और चौथी सिचुएशन है कि यू हैव अनकॉन्शियस एनवी. द ईगो represses the unconscious envy, but either the repressive force is weak or the envy is too much as it collects over a period of time. So there is not, you don't know what to do, and therefore the only way out is to project.
Okay.
So in that fourth situation, it will be a projection of envy. It is very common in narcissistic personalities that they will say, many of them, not all of them, many of them will say, I don't feel envious at all. In fact, I admire every good thing outside of me. And yet, envy will be unconsciously at work, partly repressed, partly at times it will be projected onto others. Not only projected, there will be a situation 5 where projective identification will happen and the person will make others envious of him.
Yes. That's what I've noticed, yeah.
Yeah, so there will be fourth situation of projection and fifth situation of projective identification, where the envy will be lived out by identifying with the other.
So the person would say that that other person is envious of me.
They will always complain, I don't know why, but I meet all such kind of people who are extremely envious at me.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, 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 okay.
And he will also say that whenever I meet them initially, they are all fine, but I don't know what happens to them when they stay with me for some amount of time. They all start developing this envy, maybe because I am too good.
So that is projective identification of envy. Ah,
Yes, yes. Where you make the other person actually envious, and the other person now is destructive to you.
okay, okay, okay.
You act out your envy using the other as a channel upon yourself.
Right.
In projection, you only feel the other is envious, but the other does not know he is envious, and he does not act against you. But in identification, projective identification, the other feels envy and he starts becoming destructive to you. He actually acts it out.
Okay, okay. Right.
So this is how we look at envy in different ways.
Okay. So
Now
here
coming
what
to the
happens to shame
evolutionary,
and guilt?
uh,
What happens to shame and guilt in these 5 steps, like different stages or types of envy?
differently they come out or they don't come out. For example, if it is successfully repressed, we just don't know. So the guilt or the shame also is completely repressed.
Okay.
It is only in very deep therapy that both of them will come out. In case of projective identification, you will be relieved of guilt and shame because you will put it on the other.
Right, right, right. That the other is acting out
So he should be
envious.
feeling shame and
Right, right, right,
so you will say he should be feeling guilt and shame. Why should I be feeling it?
right,
He has done wrong to me. I have not done anything wrong to him.
right, right,
That will
right,
be the kind of argumentation.
right. Okay. So that is complete ignorance of
Coming to the
yeah, shame and guilt.
ignorance, yes.
In the fifth one, projective
In both cases of
identification.
projection, in projection and projective identification, there will be a absolving of oneself of guilt and shame
Okay, okay, okay.
because you are attributing envy to the other. In one case, it is just an attribution. In the other case, it is actually putting it into him and making him act out.
Right, right, right. Okay.
Coming to the next point of evolutionary significance, why should nature have put this kind of entity into us?
That would be very interesting.
Yes, yes. So people say that this is in order to foster a spirit of healthy competition. That if there is something good outside of me and I just become an admirer and I live like a satisfied soul, I am not inspired, I am not motivated. So people will be good at heart, but they will not progress. So progress requires some friction, some motivation. So this is like a motivation that it gives rise to healthy competition. So the sublimation of envy is in three things: admiration, gratitude, and inspiration. That instead of destroying the object of envy, we make ourselves worthy of that object. We create such new objects or even better objects. And we feel admiration and gratitude that such a good object exists. So instead of responding negatively with destruction, we respond positively with admiration and constructive creation.
Right.
So that is the evolutionary significance of envy, of why such a strong element should be put into human beings and what is the purpose of it. So Klein has written a very good book, Envy and Gratitude. and client says the real solution to envy is gratitude. Feeling grateful when you look at a good object, that's a positive response to that object. And the negative response is greed or envy. So when we see something good outside of ourselves, the negative response is of greed and envy. The positive response is of admiration, gratitude, and inspiration.
So it has to envy has to be processed from its own point of origin to the point of gratitude. No, it can't jump from like envy to into gratitude. Otherwise, I think it will get suppressed.
Yeah. So there'll be two ways of looking at it. One is to do reaction formation and then say I have feeling of gratitude while the envy is repressed.
Right, exactly.
Or you honestly open up the envy, accept it, own it, feel it fully,
Right.
and exhaust it completely, and then move to the gratitude.
Gratitude, right.
So that is what the real deeper process is. Otherwise, you put a lead on envy and then you jump from that lead onto its opposite.
Right, which is what many people do.
So that is what happens. And unfortunately, in many spiritual circuits where positive thinking is taught, this is what happens often.
Yes.
That you don't accept and resolve the negative, you put a lid over it, and then from there you jump to its exact positive opposite.
Right.
And this is the trouble with non-profound positive thinking.
Right.
Now, how does it work out in psychotherapy?
Yeah.
In psychotherapy, this is very important because the patient starts feeling envy towards the therapist himself. Can you think of why? It's a big trouble in therapy.
Patient becomes envious of the therapist himself.
Yes. And that is not good for the therapy process.
Right.
One is the position of therapist himself, the omnipotent parent figure position.
Right.
Two, the projection of the good things onto the therapist, the idealization of the therapist.
Right.
And the strong parental figure the savior or the solution giving perception of the therapist. All of these lead to the envy of the therapist.
This sounds very common because all the three things are bound to be there in a therapeutic situation.
And therefore, it has to be worked out. Because this envy will result in attack on the therapist unnecessarily and resistance to internalizing the therapist as a good, reliable, stable object.
Right. So does it depend a lot on the personalities of the two people?
Yes.
Because ये जो तीन dynamics है वो तो they are given in any therapy
Right.
situation.
Yes.
मतलब phenomenologically देखो तो they are bound to be there.
Yeah, very
So
much so.
the main variable factors are the personality of the client and the personality of the therapist.
Yes, yes.
So envy generation अगर client में high है तो थोड़ा तो issue खड़ा होएगा ही.
Yes, that is true.
Or the personality of the therapist is such possibly, like very
Ah.
awe-inspiring kind of personality or something possibly which can generate envy.
The more glamorous and the more greater brand the therapist is, more this will be the issue.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is how it plays out, and how to heal it is to move towards what client said, that for healing the envy, the first is acceptance, and second, a desire to move out of envy into the constructive area and realize why envy was put by nature in us, and to move towards the real purpose of envy, which is admiration, gratitude, and inspiration.
Right.
And this movement is the healing movement, whether we do it psychoanalytically or in holistic healing. But this is the movement which is very necessary to heal envy. It troubles most of the people and is a very important element in therapy. So this one has to move towards that healing of the envy.
As you are saying, envy is so deeply embedded in the psyche. To reach in therapy till that point and then to bring it out and get it accepted and process it out and all.
Yes, it takes time. It requires therapy to take depth before the person can actually access this such a deeply repressed entity.
Yeah.
So this is, we are not talking about the 5th session or the 10th session. We would be talking about the 100th session or 150th session. Unless somebody has envy completely on the surface and he is okay explaining it. There are many people of that type for whom it is not repressed at all. They are easy to, they find it easy to recognize and even accept it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So for them, it will be as early as the 2nd session or the 5th session. But for most people, it will take long time.
Long time.
So this is how we would look forward to healing. And it's a very important element in treatment of psychosis, in treatment of a constant feeling of distress and dissatisfaction, a sort of agitation and anger, one cannot make out what it is, inability to participate and celebrate in success of others or in good events, very difficult to have social relationships going on because you are not able to admire or participate in the celebration of others. So from a clinical point of view, from a from a personal quality of life point of view, and from a social success point of view, and ultimately everything will get into the quality of life. So for overall good quality of life, it's very necessary to understand and overcome and heal this element of envy.
But
So this is all
it's one
that
of the
I have
rare
to
ones
say.
to catch also, I feel.
Very elusive, very difficult to
Very
catch.
elusive, yeah, exactly. Because from what you have shared, it's very obvious that it's so deep and its manifestations are so indirect.
Yes, it's not easy to catch it in oneself also. It takes quite some effort and awareness to really catch the envy in us if it is severely repressed, as it is in most cases.
Sir, as simple as you admiring someone's something is a sign of envy, right?
It can be accompanied by envy. It may be genuine
is-
admiration also.
Yeah, but it can be unconscious, very deep unconscious envy.
Yes. Yes. At times, many times it happens that consciously we admire, and at the same time we have unconscious envy towards the same thing.
Right.
So it's a very treacherous emotion, I would say. envy.
Yes, this is this is one of those areas where we have to learn from Freud. Somebody asked Freud that people tell me that you are a masochist and autocratic dictatorial person, completely rigid and not open to anybody. As a psychologist, a psychoanalyst, what is your opinion on this thing?
Hmm.
So Freud wrote back to him to say, I don't trust myself when it comes to my own analysis. So when we try to look at envy in ourselves, we have to take that attitude. It's not easy to trust ourselves when we try to explore our own envy.
What are the methods?
It's a very elusive and very deceptive entity,
Right, right. What
not
are
easy to catch.
possible methods to deal with envy? Therapeutic and holistic also, I would say.
First is when we look at envy, uh, if it is coming out, it is easy, but if it is repressed, then we have to look at how we feel inside of us when we see something good outside of us. Can we do something good for others? And when the other is enjoying, how do we feel? Are we genuinely happy, or is there a holdback? Or are we feeling slightly low, slightly angry, slightly agitated?
Okay. So self-aware
Second,
होना पड़ता है to begin with.
हाँ,
Okay.
for example, it can be when the most successful actor comes on television, you change the channel because of the envy. You may not like to see him because he is where you wanted to be unconsciously, but you are not.
Okay.
So many people have this, that whoever is number one, they don't like him. So changing of channels, bearing anger and hate towards celebrities, uh, not feeling like giving good ideas to others, not being able to genuinely participate in celebrating success of others. When you see somebody looking good, having the very uncomfortable negative feeling. In giving something to somebody, there is a huge amount of resistance. So when we map out our response in variety of ways to the goodness outside of us, and the goodness that takes many forms, then we realize what it is, and slowly we have to start by understanding it and practicing behaviorally. This is where, apart from the psychoanalytic understanding, doing it is a very big part of healing oneself. So we understand and we work psychoanalytically, and then we do it using behavioral techniques or even otherwise. But doing it also is a great healer. And holistic healing wise, we can look at pranic healing, we can look at Reiki, and we start using the energies to bless that envy in us so as to reduce its intensity.
And maybe some forms
Or
of
the repressive forces
meditations
which
and
are,
meditation.
yes,
Would
or
you try?
work on the repression. Yeah, or work on the repression so that the repression is uh, made lighter and our access becomes easier.
Hmm.
Cognitive acceptance also is something very important.
Yes.
For example, the moment you feel something of it, you acknowledge and you say, I am burning in the flames of envy.
Yes.
Even that acceptance and verbal pronunciation takes you a step forward.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It makes it much easier to accept and own up the envy.
Right. Okay.
Like many people criticize Donald Trump, and I say, I feel envious of him. I wish I was the president and I had all the women that he has.
Oh my God. Right.
So
Yes.
when you look at Donald Trump, you will feel a variety of issues. You might feel anger, dislike, hatred, liking, narcissistic identification, positivity, but you will always feel envy also,
Yes. That
because
he
the man has
doesn't
devil's
deserve
luck.
it. He doesn't deserve, and still he's got so much.
Yeah, but all that, that may be one, but he has devil's luck that despite all that he has got lot of things that everyone wants.
Right, 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 right. True, true. Yes.
So he has got money, he has got women, and he has got power and fame
Yes.
and a very good health at this age.
True.
So if you feel envious towards him, it proves that you are a normal human being.
Right. Okay.
Okay, this is all I had to say about envy.
हाँ
Any questions?
नहीं इसमें तो हो गया. I have a question from what you shared on the group. If it may be a personal question, but you said that I have envy without objects or something.
Oh yes, I forgot that point. I
हाँ,
forgot that
हाँ.
point.
That was very
This
interesting.
brings
Yeah.
us to the element, because yeah. So normally we say that envy is towards something good outside of us.
Hmm.
And then some Kleinians believe that in some people, the envy is towards good inside of us.
Right.
That the envy destroys the good which is inside of us. Right? So it cannot tolerate, the envy is so high that it cannot tolerate goodness even inside of us. And that is where envy becomes completely different from narcissism. Right?
Okay.
So this is second part. And the third deeper part, what I have realized is that when we say envy destroys goodness in us, envy destroys goodness outside of us, we are still looking at envy in response to an object.
Right.
But I have realized that it is possible to experience object-free pure envy inside of us.
Yeah. How does
And
that
this
happen?
brings me, when you start working on envy and you start removing envy from so many objects to which it is attached, slowly you come to a point where, at least for some time, I'm not saying it's permanent, at least for some time, you realize that you are looking at envy pure into itself without any object. Which means the case is that it is not that an object of envy appears before us and then envy is manufactured at the moment to respond to it.
Hmm.
The situation more likely is that there is some store of envy as pure envy and some envy which is generated or manufactured in response to an object. So this pure envy into itself brings us to the concept of pure affect. That possibly most of the affects that we have, a minimum amount of those affects are present in us by birth or immediately after birth in their pure form without any object. And before I discovered uh, envy without object, I think Klein had discovered a similar thing in terms of the death instinct.
Yeah,
That
you
the
had said
pure
that.
death instinct in us, that the pure death instinct in us is without an object, and it starts coming towards us in search of an object,
Mhm.
and therefore it has to be deflected outwards onto the breast. So essentially what it means is that the pure affect, part of the pure affect is activated and part of the affect is manufactured in response to an object whenever an affect is moving towards the object. So the affect moving towards an object has part affect manufactured in response to the object, and part of it is derived from the pure storage of pure affect.
Yeah,
So
but to
this
be
is
able to
how
see that
it,
storage itself is quite a thing.
it is, because I experienced it for a very short time, and after that I was not able to experience it. I am yet to do it repeatedly to know more about it. But I feel certain about the phenomena. I don't have any doubts about it. So
But that is a result of
this
any
is
like
a
spiritual practices, or how does it, or it happens by accident, or
it may happen by accident, but of course I have done many spiritual exercises, never with the objective of discovering pure affect, but it did lead me to objectless affects, because I have experienced objectless love also, objectless happiness also, and objectless envy also. So on the positive side and negative side, both the sides, object-free affect is something which I have experienced, and I have no doubt about the veracity of that experience.
okay. And what about this Kleinian death instinct, which she's experienced like by itself? I mean, how would that be? If in case, I don't know if you can explain, because that's something very
Slightly
interesting.
different because slightly different because what client says is this, that client does not believe in object-free affect. Object-free affect is my concept. Client always believes that we are always reacting to objects, and if we don't have it, we will manufacture object in the mind.
Right.
So this is how client looks at it. So client always felt that the death instinct would come towards us as an object, ourselves, and in order to save ourselves, it would be deflected out so it would be deflected out onto the breast, and this deflection is very common of most of the negative effects,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and this deflection can use various defenses to get deflected.
Right. Right. Okay.
So
चलो आज
this
एनवी
is
को
all.
पकड़ा, एनवी को पकड़ा आज. But it's
काफी टाइम हो गया, कितना टाइम हुआ?
almost 2 hours. कितना हुआ? 4:48.
Oh,
Almost 2.
Yeah, almost 2 hours. But
so there was a
interesting.
very a bestseller book, I Am Okay, You Are Okay करके,
Right.
which talks, of course, about envy, but not so much in detail. And I think it was a very old book, but a bestseller.
हाँ, बहुत ही अच्छा बुक है, एरिक बर्ने
हाँ.
का है, ट्रांजैक्शन एनालिसिस के ऊपर.
हाँ,
जी
right.
जी.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think it's a must read kind of book. Sorry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But envy का मतलब depth आज ही पता चला when we talked so much. I never realized that it could be such a deeply
Yes.
embedded emotion. Something very, I think,
वैसे ही शेम का है, वैसे ही गिल्ट का है.
हाँ.
वैसे ही शेम है, वैसे ही गिल्ट है. So people have written thick volumes only on the single emotion.
Mm-hmm.
इस तरह से. It's a very interesting thing. So this is all I had to say about envy. Any questions you have?
नहीं, mine are exhausted, well answered, I would say.
No.
मतलब मुझे पूरा एनवी का डायनामिक पता
मैत्री जी?
चला अभी. एनवी का जो डायनामिक
Yes,
होता है, I think till now it was more in a static understanding envy, but now I feel it's a very very deep and dynamic emotion.
True.
Someday we can take up envy and its manifestation in various DSM diagnostics. I mean DSM diagnosed sicknesses.
Right. Okay.
Maitri, any questions?
None for now, sir, but I'm sure बाद में आएंगे.
जरूर.
Okay, good session. Thank you so much.
Yes, wonderful it was. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you. Should we stop for now?
Supriya ji for organizing as well.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes,
Thank you.
welcome. Yeah. Okay. चलो उस बहाने मिल
Yeah.
भी लिए. और बुक्स का
हाँ जी।
सेलिब्रेशन हो गया.
True.
Right.
So now they'll be available
See you
on
then.
Amazon, right?
Bye.
All the books.
Yeah.
Yes,
All
yes,
the
all of
books
them
are
will be
available.
available.
Okay, okay. ठीक है, चलो.
Yeah, all of them are available.
Thank you, sir. Bye, Supriya ji. Thank you.
Bye,
Okay, see you
bye.
then.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll upload once I do the उसका वो हो जाएगा.
जी.
ठीक है.
Yeah.
Sure.